Hi, my name is Shannon Doherty. I'm studying at Florida Atlantic University. I'm studying biology, majoring in zoology and marine biology. So my university requires a year of a foreign language, and I chose Spanish. However, I did want to continue with my Spanish lessons because my husband is actually from Honduras. His whole family speaks Spanish, so I really wanted to learn more to communicate with him and with his family and become a part of that important part of him.
Hi, my name is Rebecca. I'm eventually going into the pharmacy program. I'm currently studying at Trident Tech, which is where I took 2 years of Spanish courses.
I actually started Spanish in elementary school, but it was not consistent and I did not commit myself to it fully. So it was really just off and on studying. And I feel like I wasn't immersed in it to really like catch on and hold on to it. And so now being in college, I still feel like I'm a beginner, but now I'm actually committed and dedicated to learning and picking it up.
I actually did virtual only, so I didn't have a Spanish classroom per se. I was 100% on my own to learn the vocabulary, to practice on my own. I occasionally was able to speak with my instructor, and I could schedule times to speak with my instructor. However, I did find that a little intimidating. So it took a lot of getting used to not being forced to actually schedule those sessions.
As a student in the classroom, I was definitely not the one to offer answers when speaking. I do okay reading with Spanish, and I feel like I understand a lot when I listen to somebody, but definitely I had no confidence to speak out because I was afraid of not knowing the right word or especially mispronouncing it, saying something wrong.
In South Carolina, there's not a lot of Spanish interaction outside of TalkAbroad or the classroom environment online. So TalkAbroad was really my first chance to get to practice what I was learning in class.
But my first conversation, I just remember over preparing. I had like a dialogue, a script written just in case to make myself feel better, to make myself feel prepared. I was like panicking and like, oh, maybe I can just, cancel and reschedule because I was very, very nervous and I didn't know what to expect for my first interview or my first talk.
Before my very first talk abroad, I was definitely very nervous. I didn't really know what to expect. And I was very hesitant with my ability to actually hold a conversation. I had never studied Spanish before. This was my first time in an online-only class. So I didn't really know how I was going to perform, and I didn't want to embarrass myself by being horrible, of course.
And then also I compare when I hear the playbacks, I'm able to see how I have improved with my own pronunciations of things and just being able to pick up more words and vocabulary from my own knowledge and being able to express myself. It's come a long way. Oh man, the first time I heard back the playback from my very first conversation, it was embarrassing, but it was really funny because I knew I mispronounced a couple of words, but then I was catching things that I have been saying wrong for a long time, that then I was able to realize, oh, I was actually saying that wrong. And then playing it for my husband, he was really impressed as well because I tend not to speak in front of him or his family. I just listen. So he was really excited to actually hear me use Spanish and speak and have a conversation with somebody. So that was a really cool experience to share with him as well. But it's just funny to hear back the difference of my very first conversation when I was kind of stumbling and not confident and just having a lot of gaps between the conversation as well. And then now it's more of a flow with the Spanish. So it's really cool.
Okay. Since I was in a virtual only setting, my primary input was actually going online and watching YouTube videos, especially of children's books and stories, because it was much simpler. So I found that there were more words that I could understand and I could string together sentences and follow along the storyline better because it was designed for children. So they made it a little bit more simple. However, once I got to talk abroad, it was really exciting because all those vocabulary words that I was studying and reading in my book, when I heard them spoken to me, it made it much easier to understand what was going on because I already had memorized that vocabulary and I wasn't having to string it together myself and try and piece things together. It was already things that I had been given. It was just a chance to practice those. I really enjoyed when I used Talk Abroad. I used the same partner multiple times. And by far, that was my favorite part of the program because she became like a friend. So she remembered things about me and I remembered things about her. So when I did my prep work for the last 2 or 3 sessions, I was able to think, ooh, she talked about this. And then I could go and look up what I needed to say to discuss that further and get more information from her. So it wasn't just a shot in the dark conversation. Knowing that I was going to use the same partner again, because I, could go in and check her availability and know that she was going to be there for me later on. It really opened the doors to me exploring more Spanish on my own instead of just waiting for what the instructor handed to me. I was excited to learn new things all by myself so I could have that conversation with my partner. And it became more of a fun project instead of studying monotonous. I'm just here to get it done and get out of here.
Yeah, so Talk Abroad, I feel like has helped me just realize that I just need to go out and speak. Like, that's it. I need to get out of my own head and just let go of those fears. And if I'm saying something wrong and they're confused, they will do the same for me that I do for them. If I'm not speaking and they're understanding, they will kind of ask, like, can you give me an example or like explain yourself a little bit. So I think having those experiences with different people and speaking about different things with Talk Abroad has given me the chance to realize, like, it's okay to mess up and it's not the end of the world and we will figure it out and everything will be fine. And just like knowing that it is really cool to be able to hold a full, now I'm up to 30 minutes. So it's like a whole 30-minute conversation with somebody entirely in Spanish. I never thought I could do that.
So I felt like after using Talk Abroad, my comprehension did increase a lot because we were talking about exactly what was in the textbook. So it was a chance to practice what was in the textbook. And I didn't have the vocabulary to really expand beyond that. So I had to use what we were using in class because that's what my partner was prepared to talk to me about. I did find it really interesting and very nice that the exact words that I was studying were the words that my partner was giving to me in the sentences that they asked or talked about. So it made the link very strong. It didn't feel like Talk Abroad was a separate entity from my class. It was just an extension of the class.
Hi, welcome to this Talk Abroad workshop. My name is Todd. I'm the president of Talk Abroad. And today we're going to be digging into authentic, comprehensible input and how you can add authentic, comprehensible input into your curriculum with Talk Abroad conversation partners. If you're not familiar with Talk Abroad, we provide one-on-one or a small group or full classroom conversation practice between students and our trained conversation partners. This is the third in 7 sessions. The first 4 sessions all focus on different ways that Talk Abroad can challenge and improve your curriculum. The last 3 sessions will all look at implementing Talk Abroad into your curriculum. So if you hear things that you want to try out from the first 4, the last 3 will walk you through that. Don't worry if you're not able to attend all 7 or see all of them live. They will all be available right on our YouTube channel from here on. Well, without wasting further time, I'm going to pass this over to our co-hosts, Daniel Trigo from Michigan State University and Dr. Inbal Mazar from Drake University. Take it away. Thank you.
All right, so welcome to Workshop 3, Talk Abroad. Today we are going to be talking about input and how to navigate authentic input within interactions with native speakers, the conversation partners on Talk Abroad. So my name is Daniel. I'm at Michigan State University. I do digital media, and I have taught Spanish for many years.
I'm Inbal at World Languages and Cultures Department at Drake University, and I also teach Spanish.
I think it's super important that when we talk about these words, like it's always like communicative, input, output, comprehensible, I think it's really important that we at least be on the same page with the definition, because it can be really easy to start bringing in things that might not actually be related to the terms that we're talking about.
Okay, so how would you define input?
Yeah. So no, I'm throwing you under the bus on this one. All right. So how do you define input, right? I don't know. Is your department, do you guys talk about input, like your formation? Like, what do you know about input? How would you define it? Kind of maybe like generally, it doesn't have to be a perfect definition agreed upon by everyone. But how would you do that?
How you receive and process language? Is that how a student would be receiving, or a learner would be receiving and processing what they are learning?
Yeah, so the input, I almost kind of think of like the language itself that's coming in, that's being processed, right? So usually we have spoken, or language that's heard, and then we have language that's written, so then I'm reading, so that's what we process. And so great with TalkAbroad, we get a lot of input, right?
Absolutely.
So language that students are hearing. And one of the things that we have to do is we have to help our students learn to navigate that input. Especially your first conversation, second, maybe your third conversation, students who've never done this before, it's kind of scary.
Yeah. Sure.
In the end, they always reflect and the great experience, but in real time, it's like, what do I do? And I had the privilege to interview a few students last week, and just across the board, it's like, I'm going into a situation and I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, unfamiliar.
Like,
and new.
what if someone says something and I don't understand? That's like completely out of left field. Like, it might happen all the time in the classroom, but there's this buffer of 20 other students to help bear that burden collectively. But it's like me and you, and now, like, what happens? And so this input's really important, because obviously if the student doesn't understand what's going on, I would say that that input is not comprehensible and not really of any value. Right. So you've worked with lots of classes and students. How do you prepare your students to interact with that input? So for a TalkAbroad, TalkAbroad conversation, So the first time I used it I had students right beforehand reflect on what are your strengths? What do you think is going to go well? What do you think you need to work on before? What would you like to work on during this conversation? What do you want to accomplish? What are your goals? Just a few standard questions that I had for them, so that they would, think it through. They not just have a conversation, but have a conversation that they can take later and listen to it and say, okay, this is what I did really well, or here's where I got stumped, right? Or so we have that, and then afterward they also write a little bit, just a short reflection, just to stop and think about why it is that we did what we did, right? I'm not just assigning you an assignment for nothing, and I think that they really appreciate that sometimes when assignments are meaningful and they understand why they're in the assignment, right? So that's how they prepare. Oftentimes, if it's not just a conversation, hello, right? We'll have them write some questions together. So they're writing questions as a team or individually, and then they're having that conversation. So there's a pre, there's a during, and there's an after, right? There's a post. So that's one way for me to prepare students for the actual experience. And, honestly, I prefer to have the 5 conversations across the semester, so that they can go back and listen. And the cool thing is, so we have we require an electronic portfolio for graduation at Drake University, and they can go back and listen to that first conversation that they had. And when you go back and you look at your freshman year papers in college and you cringe, right, a little bit, and you say, but then you also say, wow, I really grew. And that's what I love to see students, like, they say, oh, I listened to my TalkAbroad conversation from 3 years ago. Whoa, listen to me now, and that's a really, really cool way to show that transition for them, and they get to have it recorded into history for them. Yeah, 100%. That's one of the things that we always do with our conversations with our students, is we have them transcribe portions of their conversation. And so they have their conversation, they get the recording of it afterwards, and then we have them transcribe whatever it is if we're like have a certain topic that they usually do like 300-ish words like around that topic and something important that they learned. So for me, like that access to input is cool. Maybe you didn't even get everything the first time during the conversation, but you get to go back and listen to it again and again. And obviously transcribing makes you listen to it 100 more times than you'd ever want to. But for me as an instructor, because there's still meaning tied to that input, that's really important. So let's take a look at someone and see what they are doing out in the field. We want to see what some other professors are doing to see if what we're talking about is also what else is going on. So
they can listen to it again. So I tell them after they've gotten their grade and whatever for a particular session, and I tell them, okay, between now and the next session, you're not done. I would recommend maybe you might have only 10 minutes, but everybody has 10 minutes that with a purpose, with a goal, you're going to listen to this session again, not the whole thing because you don't have 30 minutes, 10 minutes of it, any place you want, the beginning, middle, end, whatever. And listen for the reason that you're going to listen for. I'm lazy, I'm tired, I don't want to take notes. I'm just going to listen to the conversation part for 10 minutes to see if I can understand it. Focusing on the native speaker, what the native speaker is saying. Okay, another time I have a little bit more time, I'm going to focus on grammar errors. Because when you're focused on one aspect, it's much easier to identify the problem. If you focus on vocabulary or pronunciation, just but one, and for a short span of time, 10 minutes or more, but at least 10 minutes, and do it every day, then they're going to learn something. Pick up things, not the glaring errors that they learned the first time they heard it, but more minutia, more minute errors.
So I think that's really interesting. I might argue against focus on form as being true input that actually goes into your linguistic system. But I like the idea of listening with a different focus every time. Like, oh, because sometimes we're like, listen to it, and it's like, what am I listening to? And is it just the gist of what's being said, or like, oh, focus on vocabulary this time around, or focus on pronunciation. Is there something that, and I think comparing for me is always a really, something I focus on, like compare this accent to maybe the accent that I have, or an accent of another partner. So listening to this over and over again with kind of a different lens each time, I think is a really interesting activity. What are your thoughts?
Well, something fun, what it made me think about, I've used this before where they have a half an hour conversation, and within that conversation they choose 8 minutes for me to listen to. First of all, it reduces my time, so I don't have to listen to 25 times 30 conversations. Let's start there, right? You don't ever have to listen to the entire conversation. You can, it's there. And oftentimes I find myself just continuing to listen because I'm so proud and engaged with what's going on that I want to hear the whole thing, and it's fun. But when they get to select, when they have the agency of selecting those 8 minutes, then they really listen and listen and listen because they think that we're going to be grading on every nitpicky. I'm not. I just want to know, where's your best 8 minutes? So then, maybe they were getting their motors cranked in that first couple of minutes, or they were nervous or whatever it was, right? But then they feel it. And this is the point where I'm really proud. Listen to me speaking here. And they'll write out, if you see, I was talking about this, and then we mentioned that, and they get to say, this is my best part. So I think that they listen and listen again, looking for their best part. And that's another part of like segments of it as well.
Yeah, definitely. So let's check out one other video here. I think this is a really cool something. A lot of these things, to hear someone articulate it, it's like, oh yeah, but I never thought to say it that way. So we're going to check this out here. And
I do tell them conversations in real life. You can start off and I do give instructions for the partners. But the nature of conversation is you start speaking about your past and you end up talking about the pet you have now or something else, and so that's natural. I tell them, as long as you began and you stuck with your topic for a certain amount of time, and then if it transitions, that's just the nature. And if you can flow with that, you're demonstrating your flexibility and you are understanding what your partner is saying. And so, yeah, that's just the natural part of conversation in any language.
So I love the natural part of any conversation, right?
Absolutely.
And I think especially with input, this is really important. And maybe we'll even talk about kind of that novice, intermediate transition, because in terms of comprehension and production, my speech or my comprehension will be limited to things that I am familiar with.
Right.
Right. So I can, if I'm an intermediate low speaker, like I can talk about my day.
Right.
And I can ask you some basic questions about your day.
Mm-hmm.
But like I can't talk about somebody else's day. That is actually a harder task. So I love this idea with TalkAbroad, and she talks about, you start talking about your pets, like it's so we've talked about personalization in terms of content, but I think personalization in terms of input is really important because it meets you at your level, and then again topically actually changes kind of the order of acquisition, right? So it meets you where you are.
For sure. And I wrote down pets because pro tip right here, students love talking about their pets in general. And that ends up being, I hear pets on almost every one of those introductory conversations. They love it. So yeah, it's authentic. It means something to them and they want to learn more about it because of it, right?
Yeah. 100%. And we talked about this in one of our other sessions, but just to bring it back up here quickly, because I think it's really pertinent in the input section, is the students, I might be at a 200 or a 300 level class, but my students are all over the board in terms of their language proficiency. And so as an instructor, it's always really hard. Like, where do you pitch? And we tend to do like the middle high, like you can't pitch to the lowest student, you can't pitch to the highest student, because it's too hard. Like, and depending on how many students are in your class, like this is individualized again. Like I've been in second semester, third semester classes where we didn't have a structure for heritage learners. So I'm here with novice mid, some novice low, like true beginners of language, along with a heritage speaker.
Or a few,
and it's like, how do I engage? And it was awesome to be able to implement TalkAbroad because I could just do a little side notes like, oh, hey, when you get on TalkAbroad, like we're talking about like daily activities, but like
you go ahead and
you can engage this differently or talk about this, but then it would give kind of a little extra. And so I was able to help the students receive that individualized input, which I think is more meaningful. And again, I would argue that language that bears meaning, that is trying to communicate a message, is the only real input that is going to go in and be of value. So.
I'm behind you 100%. And to think, how do we make sure all our students are advancing? How do we do that? If we teach to the middle, then you have a group of students or a couple of students who are already at that point. And this gives us that personalization and that input and that culture all together in one. So I think I definitely agree with what you're saying in the sense that we're able to provide our students with more opportunities that we are harder to provide in the classroom. And that makes our job easier and it makes their learning better.
Yeah, 100%. Cool, so let's check out one last video on input.
All of the conversations happen towards the end of our unit, and they are all based upon the stuff that we've been practicing in class the entire unit. So, for example, if it's all about me, right? Like, I'm 5'4". I've got brown hair that's down to here. Like, we've been practicing describing ourselves, and we've been practicing describing other people. So then, you know, after all of the grammar and the vocabulary that's related to talking about the self, you know, and also generally personal activities, I think we talk about things that we do. You know, then they're going to go and have a conversation where they ask the other person, well, like, well, how tall are you? What color eyes do you have? You know, what do you like to do on the weekend? What activities do you do? And so they're recycling basically all the same kinds of things that we're talking about in class, but they're doing it with a native speaker in real time, right? So they're getting better input that they would from a peer partner in class. And the speed at which the partner is speaking is going to be more realistic, and then training their ear for all of that as well.
So interesting. I think normally, I think the way that she puts it is kind of like, and you talked about this too for a bit, like the amount of preparation is really important.
Yeah.
So it's not like introduce this topic and talk abroad, and then we're going to come back and spend a couple of weeks on it. It's,
No.
hey, we've spent a few weeks on this.
Mm-hmm.
And talk abroad, I think when we think of assessment, it's always about output, right? And obviously it's really hard to assess some of the other skills and what they might represent. But like, I think kind of even using this like formative input towards the end is really cool too. 'Cause she mentioned, hey, they get the same vocabulary, the same structure, the same content, but in a different way.
Absolutely.
And I think that's really cool because then that is almost, these are those like self-checks for students too.
Yeah, self-checks, and we have it recorded to be able to use it in future assignments as well for the students, or within that classroom as well. So making it meaningful is it allows it to be the most successful as well, to really building those activities, working on it a few weeks before, and then having them engage in that conversation.
Yeah, meaningful is, I think, the key term there too, right? So some researchers might argue, unless the language is meaningful, it doesn't actually become intake, right? So you've got input that comes in, and then intake, you actually, we'll say, absorb, for lack of better terminology right now. And I think that the key underlying thing there is that motivation too. And especially with Talk Abroad, like the input that's coming in really matters at the time.
Yeah.
And what I say.
Makes sense to me.
Cool. So thanks for chatting with me a little bit about input and how to navigate that in these Talk Abroad sessions.
That completes our third workshop.
This completes our third workshop, and hopefully we'll see you in our fourth workshop.
Hi, my name is Ana Maria. I am from Colombia. I live in Bogota, the capital city for Colombia, and I am a Talk Abroad solution advisor.
Okay, nice to meet you, Anna. Welcome to this section where we are meeting our team of people at Talk Abroad. So it's really nice to have you here today. Thank you for sharing some minutes with us. I would like you to tell us a little bit more about you and your history at Talk Abroad. What have you been doing during these years, and what you're currently doing at Talk Abroad?
Okay, so I first joined Talk Abroad around 2012 or 2011. I'm not totally sure, but between those two. And I joined as a conversation partner for Spanish. So during from 2012, let's say, until 2017, I worked as a conversation partner for Spanish. So I had a chance to speak with a lot of students, and it was a great time. It was a lot of years working as a conversation partner. In 2017, I joined the team as a Talk Abroad solution advisor, so I became part of the staff. And it's been now 3 years for me working in this side of the group in Talk Abroad.
Okay, so, great. And What does that mean? What are you currently doing at TalkAbroad?
So now me and our small team in TalkAbroad of solution advisors are focusing in helping and in supporting teachers in the process of implementing TalkAbroad successfully in their courses and curriculums. So basically, this is like the very first stage for each teacher knowing TalkAbroad and starting to work with TalkAbroad. So we are walking with the teachers in the process of presenting what TalkAbroad is doing, showing them all of our program, and discussing what is the best way to fit TalkAbroad into a curriculum, because they are always changes from one university to another, from one level to another, even from one language to another. So our job is to work with them to successfully implement TalkAbroad and take advantage of it at their courses.
Okay, awesome. So you are in contact with professors and universities all the time?
All the time, yeah. We are
Okay.
constantly talking to different peoples in universities. We just talk with teachers and people at the languages departments. We are not related with the students in first hand. There is another part of the team doing so.
Okay, great. So you said you had a small team of work. Who works with you?
Yeah, we are a small team. Actually, it's me and also my colleague, Tim. His name is Tim Sitman. He has a background working with languages in China. So he had a chance to live in China for several years with his family. He learned Chinese there, and he was working with people learning English in these different Chinese communities. And so we are a team of 2 people. Of course, we are constantly being supported from different areas in TalkAbroad, from the technical support team, from the HR team, because we are these like first contact, the first resource teachers have.
Okay, so if there is a professor or a university or high school that has questions on how to implement TalkAbroad, or they are interested in start doing it, or they are already doing it, but they want some advice on how to improve it or have questions, they can contact you or your team, right?
Absolutely. We are there to support them. And actually, we are kind of the first contact that new teachers using TalkAbroad has. So they initially speak with us as a first step, and then we start to develop the complete process from here. And we start to assist them in different ways and based also on the needs of each of them.
Great. Anna, tell us a little bit, how does a normal process of your work looks like at TalkAbroad?
Okay, so after having this first or this initial contact with a teacher, we started what I would call a discovery stage. This discovery stage is basically for us to learn about the both of us, for the teacher to learn about TalkAbroad, but also for us to learn about their languages program. So there's a lot of questions, there's a lot of talking. We talk about the materials they are using. We talk about the goals they have for a specific course. We talk about the motivation and the confidence that the students have when it comes to speak with a native speaker. So we talk about a lot of things, a lot of components of the course and the languages program. The main goal or the ultimate goal of doing so is to discover if TalkAbroad is or not the right fit for their needs and for their program. So basically, we focus a lot on this part of discovery. We focus a lot on discuss this in providing resources that teachers may need while making their decisions, while structuring a curriculum. So we are here to provide resources. And after that, when a teacher would like to move forward implementing TalkAbroad, we moved more to some logistic things. such as setting up accounts, discussing the details of the system and these kind of things in order to finally implement the program in a specific course. So I would say that you can sum up in discovery being the part in which we focus the most, and then implementation as a setup. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Awesome. And we have been talking with Todd and Jocelyn a little bit about the TalkAbroad ethic, and well, we know that this is something that is related with all the relationships. I'm seeing that your work requires a lot of relationships with the professors. So how do you implement this ethic of building healthy relationships that are characterized by respect, commitment, and cultural sensitivity? How do you and your team apply that ethic at your work?
Okay, that's a great question. And I would say that what we are trying to do and we are doing is developing respectful commitment with teachers in which we can sustain effective relationships in the long term, in which we can serve them the best. You know, we don't want to just have someone implementing TalkAbroad and finish our relationship there. We would like to continue support implementation within the years, in cases the curriculum is changing, in cases teachers are changing from one course to another, in cases in which implementation is going to be bigger at some institution. In different types of scenarios, what we want to do is to support teachers long-term and to develop a healthy relationship between teachers and TalkAbroad.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, so I would say that sustaining effective relationships in the long term, yeah, it's probably the key, or the way that our team can reflect the TalkAbroad ethic.
Okay. Great, perfect. Anna, I think those were the questions that I had for you today. Is there anything extra that you would like to share about your team or your work at TalkAbroad?
What I can tell you, well, there's something that probably I missed on the beginning when you were talking to me about who I am and where I'm from and all these things. And when I shared with you that I used to be a conversation partner for Spanish, I just wanted to say that I truly believe in the product that we offer, because I've had a chance to experience from different perspectives, and I had a chance to see students getting that great feeling of achievement and success while they are speaking with the native speakers. But I'm also have had the chance to see the teacher's satisfaction and, again, sense of achievement while they listen to students' feedback about our activities. So that is one of the reasons why I keep enjoying my work a lot, despite it's been now around 8 years or so. So I truly believe we offer a great service, and it's for me an honor to have a chance to work in a different team that is not just a conversation partner as before. So yeah, that's it. Thank you very much for talking to me. It's been great, and I'm very excited to know there's a lot of teachers that are going to be learning about us from these workshops.
Yeah, that's the idea. Absolutely. Thank you, Anna. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being here and sharing with us a little bit about your work and your team. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you. Take care. See ya. Bye-bye.
Christian,
Hallo, wie geht's?
mir geht's gut. Und du?
Mir geht es auch gut, danke.
Ja, es war eine lange Zeit. Oder nicht so lange, aber eine lange Zeit.
Es ist viel passiert.
Ja, ja. Toll.
Was hast du so gemacht?
Ja, ja. gar nichts. Absolut gar nichts. Aber ja, die letzte Zeit war mein Sommersemester und jetzt ich bin in die Herbert-Semester, aber ja, gar nichts zwischen der Sommer und jetzt. Aber du?
Auch nicht.
Ja.
Man kann da nicht sehr viel machen. Also meistens muss man zu Hause bleiben und also man kann auch in Deutschland jetzt relativ gut reisen, also in Deutschland.
Mhm.
Und das habe ich auch ein bisschen gemacht. Also ich war aber mehr in der Nähe von Berlin unterwegs und ja, das war's.
Ja, aber ja, es ist besser als mich. Ich habe oder nein, ich habe einmal zum Strand gehen. Aber ja, es ist. Ja,
Und waren viele Leute am Strand?
ja, aber alle Leute, die Sozialregeln einhalten. Ja. Ja, und ja, ich bin in Florida und ich weiß, dass Florida ist sehr schlecht mit ja, der Strand und die Leute, aber es war okay. Ja. Und
Ja.
ja, wie ist Deutschland mit Corona jetzt?
Also es steigt langsam ein wenig.
Ja.
Am meisten in Bayern, wenn ich das richtig gesehen habe. Mein Bruder war zum Beispiel vor einer Woche in Bayern. Es ist sehr schön. Also wenn du mal die Möglichkeit hast, nach Bayern zu reisen, die Natur, Schlösser, das ist alles sehr, sehr schön. Aber es gibt ja kein Oktoberfest dieses Jahr,
Ja.
aber die Bars und die Wirtschaften haben gesagt, dass sie kleine Oktoberfeste in den Gasthöfen machen. Also, und deswegen wird das Coronavirus, glaube ich, ziemlich stark steigen in Bayern.
Ja, ja. Das ist wahrscheinlich nicht so gut für Corona und die Pandemie, aber ja.
Ta passion.
Par exemple, moi, ma passion, c'est de voyager et de cuisiner. Et toi, quelle est ta passion? Qu'est-ce que tu aimes faire?
Tu aimes faire? J'aime faire voyager aussi, mais je ne pas voyage en beaucoup place, ville. Je voyageais à Japon et Singapour.
Oh, ok. Et qu'est-ce que tu préfères?